Hey guys, Scott here. Today we are actually going to talk about Darth Vader in Dead by Daylight. Why? Because Springtrap doesn't come out for a week and the community is very bored, so everyone is debating about this because we have literally nothing else better to do. But also, it's actually a pretty interesting discussion on what can and cannot belong in Dead by Daylight, and it's something I have touched upon previously, but I figured this would be the best central point to bring it up and really dedicate an actual discussion to it. So Matthew Cote recently went on record saying that they would be trying to get Darth Vader in Dead by Daylight. I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if he's just trolling. He's definitely done that before in the past, but it could be entirely true. I have no idea. And so the community, Reddit, Twitter, everything, every social media has just been a buzz about whether or not he would fit in the game. You basically have two factions and really not many people in between. You have people that are very, very much for Dead by Daylight being solely horror based, and that's it as a horror game. Therefore, Darth Vader, who was from an action sci-fi property, would not fit. And then you have people that are kind of going on the whole, yeah, but he can be scary. And this game kind of moved away from horror a long time ago. Fucking Nicolas Cage, the actor, is in this game. It's not quite what it used to be back in the day where there were 3 killers and new moon bouquet offerings and a creepy vibe and fog and all that stuff. It's just simply not that game anymore. So those are the two camps that we're in. As for me, in terms of Star Wars, I don't really like Star Wars. I think Star Wars is overrated as shit. I'm not saying this to be a hipster or anything like that. Most Star Wars media that I have consumed, I don't enjoy. And I say this as someone that as a child watched on VHS The Empire Strikes Back literally every day for about 2 years straight. I love that movie, and I do think the original movies are pretty good. Honestly, I would even say A New Hope is not that great. I think Empire Strikes Back is really good, and Return of the Jedi is pretty good. But that's it. Like, in terms of the main Star Wars movies, the prequels, while entertaining, are pretty shitty movies for the most part. The sequels are also pretty shitty. Really, my only enjoyable, Star Wars media are, the non-main Star Wars media. Like, Rogue One I enjoyed, Andor I'm enjoying a lot. So, I don't even like the main shit. I like this side stuff that's not even, Anyway, we're not talking about Star Wars here. We're talking about Darth Vader and DVD. So people obviously are huge Star Wars fans and people are huge horror fans, and there's a lot of friction between the two. And the real argument is, Darth Vader, is he horror enough to actually fit into this game? So I would make the argument that he is. I think you could make him fit in this game. And a lot of people are not really happy about that side of the argument. They think that because he is from a sci-fi property, that it can't work. But I think it's far more important to not necessarily think about the IP that they come from, but think about how they would actually be in Dead by Daylight, what the actual gameplay would be. Because you have to remember, this is not a movie or anything. This is a game you will be playing. And I can think of ways Darth Vader would be scarier than half the killer roster, genuinely horror. Imagine he has a stealth mode or something, no Terradius. All you hear is his iconic mask sound getting closer, and then you get fucking force grabbed off a generator and choked or something like that. To me, that sounds scary as shit. That sounds 10 times scarier than half the shit in the game. Much scarier than a ghost face fucking teabagging and crouching behind a thing, and I can't fucking reveal it, and I'm just mad. Look, I think it's far more important to think about how he would physically work in the game itself, not necessarily what he is from. Then there's the whole, is he actually horror enough by itself, even if we think of him not as a video game? And I think for Dead by Daylight, we really have started stretching what can be considered horror now. Vecna, I love Vecna. I love Matt Mercer. I love D&D. I love all this shit. I'm a massive D&D fan. I think Vecna is awesome. I wouldn't really consider him a horror icon in any regard. There are a couple of horror, pre-made campaigns and stuff like that feature him, and that's fine, but he's not primarily a horror icon. He's an undead caster lich, basically. And they do creepy things, but I mean, Darth Vader does horror adjacent things too. He fucking murders millions of people. He's an incredibly imposing force. There are plenty of things that you can find similarly there. I would also say Dracula is not super horror adjacent. Yes, vampires and stuff like that are kind of in that theme, but Dracula's not really a scary character. He's cool as shit, but he's not really scary, especially the one that they got. Specifically, I believe they're based off of the original stuff like that, especially with the Hellfire and all that. So I don't really think it's that much of a stretch to add him. And then we can go with the whole separate argument, which is this game isn't really even following strict rules anymore. Like I said, I do think that the day they added Nicolas Cage, the human actor, is the day they just said, fuck it. Who cares? It's going to get people talking and it's funny. And you know what? I think Nicolas Cage is literally the best survivor they ever added to this game. His perks are amazing. His quotes are amazing. The fact that he's just Nicolas Cage being himself is amazing. I legitimately love the fact that he's in this game. And I think it really comes down to how much you realize this is just a silly game to play. And I think that comes down to how seriously you take it as well. For me, adding Darth Vader, I can think of ways it would just simply be awesome to play. I've gone on record as saying I would play an untextured error symbol from Gary's mod as long as the gameplay was actually fun. I don't really think it's as important about that stuff, but I respect the people that are huge horror fans that do really care about that stuff. I just think you do need to kind of accept that nowadays the vibes have certainly shifted at least a little bit, and I do think Darth Vader is acceptable in that regard. But then there's also the people that start going into the logistics for some reason, because I feel like this is something fandoms do, regardless of whatever the IP is. People are starting to say, yeah, well, how would Darth Vader work? He's got a lightsaber. You would just cut a survivor and they'd be cut in half and die. The obvious answer is it's a fucking video game with an especially elaborate excuse in the entity who can do literally anything with anything. It's like, but you get hit by a chainsaw, you'd be cut in half too. It's like, who fucking cares? You don't have to justify these things in like reality or anything like that, because it is a video game and the entity is the perfect excuse to allow these things to function as a game while not really modifying the IP in any notable way. You can just say, I don't know, lightsabers in the entity's realm were less potent or whatever. Like, you have Vecna, who has the entity's mark on him, who can literally just say die and people will die. There's a spell in D&D that causes people as survivors to just instantly die. But it doesn't do that because it's a video game. You got to focus on the gameplay elements. So you modify things like that to fit just fine. And you know what? People stop caring really fast. Past a week of him adding to the game, people won't give a shit anymore. No one really rants about Trickster anymore. No one rants about Legion anymore. And don't get me wrong, people did the exact same discussions that they're having now with Trickster and Legion. These are just some teenagers. Why the fuck are they in this game? Trickster is just some K-pop star. And then people be like, yeah, but he's like, oh man, it's the horror of someone who's just a K-pop star, but secretly is a murder. That's true horror. Like, people will find justifications for anything. And also, people stop giving a shit really fast, too. So it wouldn't be some, like, grand, like, oh, DBD is ruined, Darth Vader's in the game. It's like, dude, fucking Lara Croft and Nicolas Cage are in this game. That ship sailed a long time ago. I think the whole important part of this discussion is really to focus on the fact that there are plenty of ways to make him cool and scary and intimidating in this game. And just because something isn't technically like horror adjacent, something being incredibly imposing, menacing, and intimidating can work. And I think Oni is really a perfect example of that. Oni's whole thing is he's not like horror, in my opinion. He's just a fucking fast, scary, demon dude. Like, I think he is one of the most imposing things in the game, but I wouldn't consider him horror in the same way that, like, the Unknown is like a cryptid, like, creepy, scary thing. He's just a big, fast, angry dude that beats the shit out of you with a stick, and that's scary. To me, there's, like, nothing scarier in DBD than being in an open area and hearing Oni's rage start. That's the kind of shit where, like, I'm like, oh, fuck. There are very few things in this game that make me feel that level of fear, and I think you can still very easily do that with something like Darth Vader. Again, I can think of all those scenarios with the iconic mask sound and no Terrorius and stuff like that. You can do so many creepy scenarios with that. That would be so fucking cool. I can picture so many scenarios in my head, and I think that's really what we need to focus on. Not necessarily the IP that it comes from or what genre it is, but how it's implemented into the actual game itself, because this is its own video game with its own set of rules and its own set of, principles and how the game works and all that stuff. So that stuff is more important, at least in my opinion. Now, obviously, there are people that completely disagree, and they think this is bringing DBD one step closer to, Fortnite. Everyone brings up Fortnite as a good example of this because, to be fair, Fortnite is a game that gets licenses from shit that makes no sense and just throws it in there. And somehow it works. And I think a lot of people really enjoy shitting on Fortnite because of how many ridiculous things are in that game, to the point of it just being like, you just name a random, just Abraham Lincoln. It's plausible that they would add him to the game. Just any random person, and it would make sense being added to Fortnite. But I think it's also really important to note that Fortnite is one of the most successful games to ever exist for a reason. People will get upset. There will be a subset of people that don't like that kind of thing. But a lot of people are just dumb, happy, clapping CEOs that are like, yay, Darth Vader, yay. And you know what? I feel like I'm one of them. I actually wouldn't really mind if he was in Dead by Daylight. Just in the same way when Nicolas Cage was at it, I was like, what the fuck? Well, let's let him cook. Let's see what happens here. And I'm fine with it. And I think it really comes down to just not taking things so seriously. If you are like really offended that Darth Vader would be added to the game because it really breaks the horror vibes, look, I respect it and that's fine, but my advice would just be not take shit so seriously. I know that sounds dismissive of people that are really into these things, and I really don't want to come across that way. I know people are huge Star Wars fans, people are huge horror fans, huge slasher fans, and I truly understand that. But I do think the number one advice I can give to players of Dead by Daylight, if I had to give one piece of advice to everybody, it would be stop taking this game so seriously. That would alleviate 99% of the problems in this community if people just fucking relaxed about this game and didn't take it so seriously. And I think this discussion follows along with that perfectly. Overall, though, this sparked massive amounts of debates. Again, we're just bored. Springtrap is not till next week. We have nothing to talk about. But I'm sure even in the comments below this video, there will be very interesting discussions and debates. I was reading this shit on my phone for 2 hours, just like laughing at how passionate both sides are about their sides of the argument. So fuck it. We'll have a war zone in the comments. It's very interesting to talk about. That's about it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.